Yes, yesterday we discussed about the controlling process, and for first four steps we did setting standards, in which standards are set, and doing this step you need to consider one or two points, that the standards must be quantitative and qualitative in both units, and these standards are set for different standards are set for different departments. Like production department will be setting the standard in terms of the number of units to be produced in a month, in a single day, and what will be the quality of the units produced, what will be the cost of the production. So it may set the standard to reduce the cost of production. Then marketing or the sales department will be setting the standard of increasing the sales volume, decreasing the selling cost, decreasing the advertisement expenditures. And qualitative standard can be the salesman performance. What is the performance of their salesman? How the customers are satisfied with your salesperson? Then the HRM or HRD department will be setting the standard for making good labor relations, decreasing the labor turnover ratio, and decreasing the labor absenteeism. If the laborers are getting absent on every alternate day, then this department will take step to reduce this absenteeism. Similarly, finance and account department will be setting the standards like maintaining the inventories of the firm, maintaining the liquidity with the firm so that the firm is able to pay off the expenses on time. So similarly, each and every department will be setting its own standards. So second is the measurement of actual performance. In this, after giving them the standards, after the given time period, the actual performance will be measured. In this, the different techniques I told you, like performance reports, personal observation, sample checking, and accounting ratios will be used to measure the actual performance. Third is the comparison of actual performance. In this step, the standard performance and the actual performance, it means step 1 and step 2 will be compared with each other to know about the deviation. So this is the step in which the firm will be able to find out the deviations. So you have to discuss the whole topic of deviation in this step only, the types of deviation, meaning of deviation, and which deviation is good, which is not good. Each and everything you will be discussing here, which I explained in yesterday's class. The next is, which we started the step, analyzing deviation. This is very, very important step in the controlling process. So whatever the deviations you have got in the third step, whether they are the positive deviation or they are the negative deviation, in this step, all the deviations will be analyzed. Analyzed means we will find out the reasons behind the deviation. If there is positive deviation, then we will try to find why this deviation occurs. Two reasons may be there, which I told you, which may be the efficiency of the employees, either just because of the efficiency or just because of the underestimation of the standards. So the root cause behind that will be analyzed. Positive deviation, no doubt, is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So when the deviation is negative deviation, then it's a serious matter for the firm. Negative deviation means the firm or the business is not able to achieve the target. So in this process, in this step, we will try to analyze the deviations, that why the deviation occur and what are the reasons behind this. So here I told you two techniques are there to analyze the deviation. First technique is MBE, management by exception, and other technique is CPC, critical point control. Both the techniques are so important that they can come in a 3 or 4 marker question in a separate question, not the part of the process. They can come as an individual question. Write a short note on management by exception, explain CPC in this manner. So with the help of examples, you have to explain these two techniques. But whenever you are explaining the process, so at that time also, you need to explain these two techniques, okay, in short, but these are the part of the process. So you cannot just write here, just in this step, the deviations are analyzed. So you have to explain the techniques. So in management by exception, I told you one phrase that an effort to control everything may end up in controlling nothing. I'm repeating, an effort to control everything may end up in controlling nothing, which means if the manager will try to control each and everything in the organization, then he will be so much of overburdened, then he will not be able to control anything. It means he will lose control. He will be having the shortage of time and he will be overburdened, that he will not be able to focus on the minor deviation as well as the major deviation. So management by exception, the other name of this technique is control by exception. Management by exception or control by exception. This technique says that each and every manager has to fix the deviation tolerance limit. DTL, deviation tolerance limit. What does it mean? It means the limits. If the deviation incurs within these limits, if the deviation incurs within these limits, then the deviation will be acceptable. So we can say if the deviation in within DTL, then those deviations are known as minor deviations and they are acceptable. So it means if your deviation is within this limit, then the controlling process will be ended here only. No corrective action will be taken. Why? Because this is the limit which cannot be avoided. Suppose I am telling you that 1% defective units is the DTL for the production department. It means at least 1% units will be defective each and every time. Whatever the controlling steps we are taking, we cannot avoid this 1%. 1% means if we are producing 100 units, then at least maximum 1 unit may be defective. So if this limit is there, 1 unit or 2 unit or 3 unit, whatever is decided by the management. So if a worker has produced the units and 99 units are correct units, it means 1 unit is defective. So we will be not taking any step for rectifying this deviation. Why? Because this is within deviation tolerance limit. And if the deviation is beyond the deviation tolerance limit, beyond the deviation tolerance limit, then those deviation will be known as major deviations. So suppose out of 100, only 90 units are up to the mark, and in 10 units there is a problem. So in that case, this deviation will be informed to the higher authorities and they will be taking the strategic decision so that the same deviation is not repeating itself for tomorrow or for near future, and the situation will be controlled so that the more of the resources are not wasted. So this technique will be helping us certainly for the optimizing the resources or the proper utilization of the resources. So this is all about the management by exception. So this is a technique in which it is advised to the manager that the manager should not try to control each and everything. So for escaping this situation, what he can do, he can decide the deviation tolerance limit. And if the deviations are within that limit or the minor deviations, then they can be accepted and no corrective action is required for the minor deviations. And if these deviations are beyond the limits, then these are known as major deviations, and for these deviations it is very much required to take the corrective action. Okay. So defective वाला example आप दे सकते हैं कि you can set the deviation tolerance limit as a production manager 2%, 3%, and if the deviations are beyond that limit, only then the corrective action will be taken. So what will be the benefit of this technique? In this technique, the deviations which are minor or not very important can be left out to the subordinates. The management will not be interfering in correcting the minor deviation. So that may be left out with the subordinates or the lower rank position holders, and the deviations which are major deviations, like for example, the target is not achieved, and there is a great difference in between the standard target and the actual performance, then these deviations, reasons behind these deviations will be analyzed, and any reason can be there, like defective production process. This could be the reason for the non-achievement of the targets. Defective production process, defective raw material, this could be the reason. So raw material is not up to the mark, and raw material is not available on time. This could be the reason, and the workers are sitting vacant, and by the end of the day they were not able to achieve the target. And in इसको हम बोलेंगे inadequacy of resources, if the raw material is not achieved on not available on time. Unrealistic standards, it means standards are either too high to achieve or too low, that they are always achieved. So this will be known as unrealistic standards or inadequacy of the standards. Then in these, if any of these reason comes in front of the management, then definitely the corrective action will be taken. These so that the major deviations are not repeating themselves in the future. So in this step, we will be analyzing the deviation and finding out the reasons behind it. First technique we have already done, that is the management by exception. Second technique, critical point control. You must have seen in hospitals, ICU and the general ward. Anyone of you could please tell me what is the difference between ICU and general ward if a patient A is general ward and patient B is in ICU? Then what will be the difference in between their treatment, and what is it mean? Any one of you? ICU is not a new term, आप सबने सुना होगा. हाँ जी, आजकल तो आईसीयू के साथ सीसीयू भी हॉस्पिटल्स में आपको मिलेगा. कोई भी बता सकता है क्या मतलब है इसका? हाँ जी, अंश शर्मा, you are unmuted.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. Could you please explain?
मैम इन आईसीयू में मतलब ज्यादा केयर होती है पर्सनल वार्ड से.
हाँ, very good. Yes, Aryan Bansal, very good. ICU means the person intensive care units. ICU means intensive care unit and CCU means comprehensive care unit. तो ICU में full time doctors available रहते हैं और वो बिल्कुल मिनट्स के बेसिस पर जितने भी पेशेंट्स वहां पर होते हैं उनकी केयर करते हैं, बार बार में उनका सब मॉनिटरिंग करते हैं और अकॉर्डिंगली ट्रीटमेंट उनका होता है. फुल टाइम डॉक्टर्स एंड नर्सेज आर अवेलेबल इन द ICU, 24 hours availability. But in general ward, the patients who are not very critical are kept and the doctors are not full time present over there, so they are just visiting on their times. Okay, so it means the persons who are very much critical, they are kept in ICU. So similarly in business also, some deviations are critical, very critical, which needs immediate attention. If we are not paying attention to those deviations, then that deviation may take the organization in losses and serious losses. So in organization also, we are deciding KRA. KRA means key result areas. KRA means key result areas. So it means key result areas are those critical points in a business which can affect the overall working of the organization, the profit structure of the organization. Those points are known as key result areas. So each and every organization has to identify key result areas, and if any changes is there, any deviation is there in those key result areas, then it's a serious matter and it requires immediate attention. Otherwise, it may lead to the severe losses to the organization. And if the deviation is beyond the key result areas, not within the key result area, so that deviation can be ignored because that may not be affecting the overall profitability of the organization. For example, two costs are here. you can see labor cost and the postal cost or the courier charges. Postal cost and labor cost. If we are talking about the total cost of production, then you all know that in total cost of production, labor cost is very important. Raw material cost, then afterwards, labor cost. These two costs are very much important for the cost of production, and they constitute a major part of the cost of production. Suppose the raw material cost is 50%. Suppose the total cost of production is 100 rupees and the raw material cost is 50 and the labor cost is 30 and the rest 20% is the other small cost, in which postal cost is there 2%. Postal cost means if we are doing any postal activity, we are posting anything, we are getting the couriers, then we have to send the couriers on daily basis in the business. So we have to spend money on that also. So we are taking example that there is a very minor change in your labor cost, which is 2% only. So labor cost is increased by 2%. And postal cost, which is the 2% of the total cost, has been increased by 40%. Has been increased by 40%. So Indian postal cost is not critical for the business. Why? Because it is a very small portion of the total cost. So if there is a major change in the postal cost, that will not be affecting the overall profit. So 40% of rupees 2 is just 0.8. It is increased by 40%. So just cost is increased by 0.8 rupees. But if there is a labor cost, which is 30%, and there is just only 2% increase in labor cost, so our total cost of production will be increased by 6 rupees. So it will be affecting the total cost to a great extent, and our profits will be reduced by this. So two examples I have given you. One is of the labor cost and other one is the Indian postal cost. Postal cost is increased more as compared to labor cost, but postal cost is not affecting the overall total cost. Why? Because it constitutes a very small percentage of the total cost. So a major change in postal cost will not be affecting the total cost, but a very minor change in the labor cost will be affecting our total cost structure, and which in turn will be affecting the profit structure of the business. So which is more critical from your viewpoint? Which is more critical, labor cost or postal cost? Definitely it's labor cost. So if you are a manager and two costs are in front of you, two deviations are in front of you, so which cost is to be considered first? Which cost needs immediate attention? Critical point, which is most critical? So each and everyone will be giving me the same answer, that it's labor cost. Why? Because a minor change in labor cost can affect the overall profitability of the business. So a business or a manager should try to control the critical points first, and the points which are not critical may be ignored, as those points will not be affecting the overall cost structure of the business. Clear? So this is about the critical point control. And one thing you have to notice here, that in critical point control, key result areas are decided, and in management by exception technique, DTL, deviation tolerance limits, are fixed. In management by exception, DTL is fixed, and in critical point control, key result areas are fixed. So deviations which cannot be easily solved by the lower level management alone should be reported to the top management only. Not the whole of the deviation should be reported to the top management, as top management is already busy. So they should focus only on the major deviations, not on the minor deviations. Minor deviations can be solved only by the लोअर मैनेजमेंट और द सबऑर्डिनेट्स. अक्षय त्यागी, आपने अपना कैमरा स्टिल किया हुआ है और मैं रिमूव कर दूंगी. Last step is taking corrective action. And now what we will be doing here in this step, taking corrective action, means in the previous step, whatever is the reason for the deviation, so that reason will be tried to sort out. It means in this step, we will be taking the deviations. We will be taking the corrective steps. So this decision could be taken only when we have done the previous step, and this up to this step we will be going only when the deviations are negative, not the positive. In positive deviation, there is no need of taking any corrective step, because there we will not be taking any corrective step. There we will be just re-estimating revising the targets. Clear? So taking corrective action means trying to removing the obstacles in achieving the targets. For example, if the laborers have not achieved the target, and after analyzing the deviation, the reason was, so in this step, you have to make a table like this: reason, corrective step. So suppose the reason is defective machinery. The machine was, there were certain defects in machine, and due to that, the laborers were not able to constantly work on that machine. Again and again, there was a breakdown in machine. So this is the reason which the managers have found for not achieving the target. So in that case, what the corrective action could be taken? Yes, Darshika. If your machine is defective, then what corrective action you will be taking? Yes. Yes, बेटा. कुछ भी नहीं आ रहा है माइंड में. Yes, Akshit, you tell. Yes, Akshit, you are not audible. Very bad. इससे पता चलता है कि आप लोग सुनते ही नहीं है क्लास में. Very good, आर्यन. वेरी बैड अक्षित. आप एक मैनेजर हैं और रियल लाइफ सिचुएशन में आपके वर्कर्स काम नहीं कर पा रहे हैं और आपको पता चला, वेरी गुड आर्यन बंसल, कि आपने मशीन ठीक नहीं है, तो आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा कि आपको क्या करना है. इफ मशीन इज नॉट करेक्टेड, डिफेक्टिव, यस, ईदर टू रिपेयर इट इफ इट इज पॉसिबल or to buy a new one. This could be the corrective step. तो आपके पास केस स्टडी आएंगी इस टॉपिक से रिलेटेड, तो आपको करेक्टिव स्टेप्स बताने होंगे कि क्या लेना है. सेकेंड, पावर फेलियर. दिस इज द रीजन. बार बार में पावर आ रही है और जा रही है, जिसकी वजह से बार बार में मशीनें रुक जाती हैं और वर्कर्स को वेट करना पड़ता है पावर के वापस आने का. तो व्हाट कुड बी द करेक्टिव स्टेप? यस नमिश. इफ द रीजन इज पावर फेलियर,
इलेक्ट्रिशियन को कॉल कर लेंगे.
इलेक्ट्रिशियन के आने से पावर आ जाएगी.
अच्छा.
सप्लाई नहीं होती है अच्छे से.
मैम इलेक्ट्रिसिटी विभाग को हम कॉल कर लेंगे फिर.
नहीं बेटा, उससे क्या होगा? वो तो उन्होंने जितना पावर कट करना है वो उतना ही करेंगे. वेरी गुड समय.
तो मैम जनरेटर लगा लेंगे.
तो हाँ, वही करेंगे. जनरेटर, अरेंजमेंट ऑफ जनरेटर. वेरी गुड. अब मैं आपको बता रही हूँ नेक्स्ट रीजन. सपोज नेक्स्ट रीजन इज defective working conditions. Defective working conditions means employees are not getting healthy working conditions, जिसमें कि हम कह सकते हैं कि प्रॉपर ड्रिंकिंग वाटर अवेलेबल नहीं है, लाइट नहीं है, वेंटिलेशन नहीं है, एयर नहीं है, तो जिसकी वजह से दे आर अनेबल टू गिव देयर 100%. Yes, Ishita, in this situation, what corrective action you will be taking?
Ma'am, we can change the working conditions as
Improving
per
the
the needs
working,
of the workers.
yes, improving the working conditions. आप proper air ventilation को arrange करेंगे, healthy drinking water को arrange करेंगे, so you will improving the working condition. One more thing can be their reason, defective process. Defective process means कि आप जिस process को follow कर रहे हैं units को produce करने के लिए, वो process ही ठीक नहीं है ना, उस process में ही कुछ shortcomings हैं. सौम्या, क्या करोगे फिर आप इस केस में? यस सौम्या, सुना ही नहीं है ना, सुन ही नहीं रही हो, इससे ये पता चल रहा है सिर्फ यू आर ट्राइंग टू जस्ट प्रिटेंड एंड लिसनिंग. यस सजल. वेरी बैड सौम्या, मत आया करो क्लास में अगर ऐसे ही करना है तो. यस सजल, अनम्यूट.
यस मैम.
हाँ, अगर आपकी प्रोसेस ही डिफेक्टिव है, प्रोसेस हियर मींस कि आप जिस प्रोसेस को फॉलो करके यूनिट्स बना रहे हैं, तो क्या करेंगे आप?
मैम एक दूसरा प्रोसेस ट्राई करेंगे.
हाँ, वेरी गुड. बहुत सारे तरीके होते हैं, मेथड्स होते हैं किसी काम को करने के लिए। अगर वर्कर्स उस प्रोसेस को कह रहे हैं कि ये बहुत डिफिकल्ट प्रोसेस है या इसमें डिफेक्टिव यूनिट्स ज्यादा बन रहे हैं, तो आप क्या करोगे? यू विल ट्राई टू चेंज द प्रोसेस। आप कोई दूसरा मेथड, ऑल्टरनेटिव मेथड यूज करना स्टार्ट कर देंगे। So these are all the corrective actions, and this will be taken by the manager as per his understanding and as per his problem solving method, जो उसको ठीक लगेगा। और ये सारे मेथड्स बेटा जो ऑन द स्पॉट आपको रियल लाइफ में डिसीजंस लेने होते हैं, दे आर नॉट मेंशन्ड इन द बुक्स। दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन योर डिसीजन मेकिंग पावर कि उस टाइम आप क्या डिसीजन लेते हैं। सो ऑल these steps should take necessary steps to correct the past action, so that this step is basically related with the future, क्योंकि अभी जो गलती हो गई है वो हो गई है। Whatever the corrective actions we are taking, they are with reference to future, so that the same causes are not